Well, welcome to Decades, hosted by Chris Rubio. Decades is a show made up of 5 generations of people brought together to discuss topics you wouldn't normally talk about with others. The goal of the show is to learn by having some good, possibly heated discussions, without losing the simple fact that it's okay to talk to different people with different opinions other than your own.
What's going on? My name is Chris Rubio, host of Decades. We have got one hell of a show for you tonight. We've got people from Virginia. We've got people from New Jersey. We've got people from Los Angeles. We got people from Texas. I'm assuming, TC, you're in Texas right now. You got people from Idaho. And we've got Doc and Chef, MD and Chef from New Zealand. Holy hell. They're like 17 hours away from not seen their show, the Doc and Chef show, MD and Chef team. I watched a couple episodes today. If you watch one of their shows and you don't learn something, you're a moron. Number 2, if you don't enjoy yourself, you're a moron as well. There's no way you can watch their show and not smile. If you do, don't talk to me because I don't want to be associated with you. That's my plug. They're on YouTube. They do a great job. We've got Scarano, we've got Crazy Man, we've got TC, otherwise known as Crosby, wearing the In and Out shirt. We've got Alex Odd Tech, otherwise known as Gru, out in LA. We've got Sub 60 Ed, producer / co-host extraordinaire. Welcome. If you are on YouTube, Facebook, I think it's LinkedIn, X, Instagram, make sure you can just send us a message, have a question for us that you want us to, a topic that you want us to hit. We have no problem doing it. So, as I was saying, being the host that I am, I was doing some research today and I watched a recent episode of MD and Chef on YouTube. It was absolutely phenomenal. Always tons of information, made me smile. I had a good time while doing it. And MD and Chef, you guys were talking about dementia, and you said at one point, you got to start working out your quads. If you don't want to start having these senior moments, you got to start working out your quads. And I thought to myself, holy hell, is that a real thing? And I don't want to ask you if it's a real thing. My question, though, is this. Over the last 4 years, in my opinion, people's trust in science and scientists has gone like this. Because everyone was told one thing, let's say December or 2019 to 2020, when there was a certain COVID going around, and where they were saying, okay, if you're walking in, the example I always give, and I use Sub 60 as an example all the time. If you're walking into a restaurant, this is the way it was in LA and all that, you got to wear a mask. But when you sit down, you don't have to wear a mask. So my thought was this, and since Sub 60 is chair level height, essentially he should never have to wear a mask. So my question to the panel is this. How do we know what science to trust? How do we know what scientists to trust? Because right now it feels like, in my opinion, this just may be my opinion, I'm not trusting a lot of people because I feel like I've been lied to a lot over the last 4 years where I'm somewhat gun shy now. So we'll open it up with Doc and Chef. How do we know what science to trust and how do we know which scientists to trust?
I love that question. Hi, everyone. I'm Isabel. I just want to say that I totally love that question because in 2013, I just was like, I had been trained as a conventional medical doctor and my patients weren't getting any better. I was just managing their disease and giving them pill after pill after pill. Because when you think about it, who was our mother and father in medical school? The pharmaceuticals. It wasn't the natural health people. It was the pharmaceuticals because they fund medical school. And that's all we're taught in medical school. We are not taught anything about nutrition and how to prevent and reverse disease. So I went on my journey to study and become retrained as a functional medicine doctor. Now, a functional medicine doctor are medical doctors, chiropractors, naturopaths, pharmacists, surgeons that understand that we got to get to the root cause of a disease. So those are the people that I listen to. When I look at a research project, I see, is it funded? Is it supported by a pharmaceutical company? If it is, well, then you know it's going to be skewed. Like you got to look at the data. Like where is it being funded from?
Yeah. One of the keys would be, okay, if I'm going to check out some research, then I'm going to investigate the research and see who funded this research and who's done the research, because research can be skewed either way. So for Isabel and I, when we're making that statement about quads and dementia, this is coming from a gentleman who over 35 years has done the research in this area, that has tried so hard. His name is Dr. Dale Bredesen.
Who wrote this book, The End of Alzheimer's. He's a neurologist, a medical doctor who thinks like us.
He has tried for like 30 years to get this information into like, Dementia America. I mean, basically dementia government systems around the world. Rejected every time. So you have to look at, okay, well, why are they rejecting him? Because he's talking about our prevention and reversal of this without drugs. So that's, where our information is coming from. Like, oh, well, how can we, lifestyle wise, take care of these chronic diseases? So I think that's something we got to look at when we're looking at the research. Where's it coming from? Who's funding it? And what's behind it?
Okay, I love that. I love that answer. And Doc, you were talking about the doctors. First thing they should say is not, here's the pills. They should say, okay, like, what are you eating? How are you drinking? Because I know one of the big part of your episodes was like, everyone says they're hydrated, but they're not even close. And I was watching something with this lady, Casey Means, Good Energy book. And she is all about it. She's she's got to be young 30s, but she went through Stanford, and she said the entire time, just exactly like you said, she was going through medical school, and everyone was like, okay, they got a cough, give them this medicine. They got a backache, give them this medicine. No one ever said like, okay, man, maybe let's try dropping 40. What are you eating? Or are you exercising? Like, let's get to the root problem of it. TC, I know you've recently had surgery, I think on your back, like several times. What did they treat you with, and what are your thoughts on this? What science do we trust? What scientists do we think we trust?
Well, I just look at things. I mean, you know me, Ruby. I'm a feel guy, and I look at things in a very simplistic way. You don't tell me how to put out fires, and I won't tell you how to fix people's backs. So, I mean, they went to school a long time to learn how to do those things. And if I feel that if your first option is we're going to cut, I'm out like a fat kid in dodgeball. But my back guy, we went through PT for months and chiropractic and all kinds of other things, and it never got better. So surgery was for him the last option. And it turns out that, the second one worked. But yeah.
Okay, so Scarano, what about you? What science do you trust, or do you have any more trust in science? Or are you kind of out with science and scientists now?
Well, I mean, I think you have to separate your difference between what you define as science and what you define as the medical field and big pharma. So I got to be honest, I give a lot of credit to Michael and Isabel, like ever since I became connected with them. I am so much more conscious of weight and diet and being open to more holistic types of medication and medicine. I don't even want to call it medication, really, when you're talking holistic. I grew up in a household, my father was a medical doctor. My brother currently is a pediatrician, and it was always throw drugs at it. And I don't subscribe to that. I'm not going to say I've never taken anything. And like Crosby, I'm a little bit more, fight through it through PT, exercise, diet, see if you can get ahead of it that way. And surgery would certainly be a last resort. I'm struggling right now because I have tendinosis, elbow tendinosis, not tendinitis, because as Isabel would tell you, once you get to the osis, it's more of a chronic problem. So, and always trying to stay ahead of inflammation. Like that's where I really struggle. And they've helped me at least be kind of open to the idea of cutting things out of diets, which is really hard. And the average American is not willing to cut sugar out and some of the other major inflammatory type foods. I'm in a public school. I see what they eat. Go ahead.
let me cut you off real quick because you're hitting a good spot right here. You're talking about things that most adults will not try to cut out because either they taste good, they smell good. Good God, they just bring a warm, fuzzy feeling. I want to jump back to everyone here, but I'm going to start with the doc and the chef. I want to talk about what are your code red foods, Doc, that you're like, for the love of God, do not eat that. And I'm going to give you one. I'm going to throw you one up because I know you're adamant about the Doritos. The Doritos are like a code red always that you say, don't eat those, don't eat those, don't eat those. Is there any other ones that you should just look at and go, they can't do that one?
I'll fire away. It's what's called ultra processed foods. You brought up Casey Means. Her and her husband and a bunch of other panelists were just over at the U.S. Senate testifying on healthcare in the U.S. And please check it out if you can, because they let it unload, and they've just done a 2-hour on Joe Rogan's podcast with it. Basically, they're talking about ultra processed food that right now in the U.S., and this is U.S. specifically, not processed, but ultra processed means it has nothing really natural in it. That American kids, 67% of their daily calories are made up of ultra processed foods. And mental health, because I know we're all about mental health, everything from autism to ADHD and all those types of mental health in kids have skyrocketed over the last 10 years. Why? Because this is one of the main things that kids are getting into with ultra processed foods. It's all chemicals. There's 10,000 chemicals allowed in the U.S. in food, and only 400 chemicals allowed in food in Europe.
Jesus.
Unfortunately, wow. The U.S. government over the last 40 years has allowed the poisoning of us as Americans. I mean, we don't live there now, but we have most of our lives, allowed Americans to be poisoned because of the systems that have been set up. 10,000 chemicals allowed in U.S. foods right now currently, as opposed to only 400 in Europe. Just think about that. What has the government allowed to happen over the last few decades?
Okay, so let me go to Gru, because I haven't hit him or the Crazy Man or Sub 60. Gru, what's one food that you know you shouldn't eat, and you're gonna give yourself up to Doc and Chef and say, okay, I eat this. Is it really that bad?
I don't really have that kind of food that I would not. That's really bad, and I
liar.
Liar. Okay.
Liar.
I've been carrying Doritos for the last probably 25 years. Okay, I tried it once. It was not my thing. Think what you want. Okay, so if I want to eat potato chips, there is a brand of potato chips made by Trader Joe's. It has only basically olive oil and potatoes. There is nothing else. Okay.
I protest Trader Joe's because the animals are too small. That's number one. Crazy Man, go ahead.
Actually, Ed can vouch for me. I really don't eat a lot of junk food due to the fact of I go out and I burn a lot of calories as it is. If I have to say, I mean, I do eat some potato chips from time to time, but normally I will eat pretzels. But due to the fact that I am running a marathon or doing these ultra hikes for charity, I kind of cut back on a lot of that stuff.
Okay, Sub 60.
My probably red flag go-to are probably either cookies and baked goods with the high saturated fats and icing and sugars and stuff like that. I don't really go for, and and I'll be honest, I love Doritos. I could sit and eat a bag in a blink of an eye, and I haven't recently just because, but probably cookies, Doritos are probably my red flags. But you know what? I grew up in that age where there was all that crap. I'm drinking Diet Coke right now. I tell people I drink Diet Coke because I need the aspartame. My body runs on aspartame, doesn't run on sugar.
Okay.
Do
TC?
you know what do you know what aspartame is, Rubio? That's
sugar?
the chemical. That's the chemical sweetener in it. Just so you know.
Yeah. Fake
Just
sugar.
wanted to make sure you knew. I
I got
was
it.
educating you.
I think
Was
that really
educating
everyone wants to know, Sub 60, are your favorite cookies the Keebler Elf cookies?
Wow.
Oh.
I saw the
I do
opening.
like I do like the Keebler Elf cookies. However, those are not my favorite. I like homemade like chocolate chips or all those kind of cookies.
All right. TC, what's your guilty food?
My red flag, if there was one thing that I knew I should stop drinking or having, it's like Bang energy drinks or Rain energy drinks, just straight caffeine.
Yep.
I don't do them often, but and I'm fortunate that I don't really like sweets. I'd rather have a nice cold fresh piece of fruit than the only real sweet I like is pumpkin pie with some good vanilla ice cream. But energy drinks are probably my if there was one thing I should cut out that I won't, it's probably energy drink.
Okay,
What about you, Rubio?
All right, we're going to get to me, Scarano.
Narrowing it down to one would be difficult.
His whole diet sucks.
Yeah, I think sub 60. No, my diet does not suck, Ed. I certainly do not eat what you eat, but I think sub 60 grew to fess up that beer probably is not a great choice. Although I am a proponent of everything in moderation. So I would say beer, pasta. Again, I don't drink or eat nearly as much pasta as I used to. And I like coffee. I have probably 2 cups a day of coffee. So those 3 are probably the top ones.
Okay, and going back to TC's question for me. Okay, Guru, go ahead.
Okay, you asked a question, at the beginning, who you trust or who you don't trust, like medical professionals. I know who I don't trust. I don't trust people like Dr. Fauci, who hasn't been a real doctor for the last 40 plus years, okay? Don't trust such doctors who are actually fake.
Gru, I appreciate you just taking over the host thing and just going back to whatever question you wanted to, big guy.
There he goes. Jim Scarano's rubbing off.
I think
Scarano's rubbing off.
You out on the beer. MD, Jeff?
Hey, Ruby, I got to follow up with this, what we were just talking about here, and Ed brought it up, oh, man, I could get hooked on Doritos or chips or whatever all that stuff is. Isabel and I always talk about this with people. It's not your fault. The facts are that around 1980, the Surgeon General of the U.S. came out and said, cigarettes are bad for you. And it started the whole downfall of the tobacco industry. And as we all know, was cigarettes addicted? Yes, they were. That's the way the scientists created it. So it was addictive. We always had to have them. Well, just a few years after that, within 5 years, the tobacco industry bought out the food industry, companies like Kraft's and Kellogg's. I forget all of them exactly the names, but 50% within the early 1980s, 50% of the world's food industry was owned by the tobacco companies. What they did was they took their scientists and said, oh, well, it looks like, boom, we're going down with tobacco, so we'll take over food. So they moved their scientists, their addicted scientists, into food, and they work on the taste, the crunch, what it does to our brain receptors to turn us on. That's why you can't eat one potato chip. You can't eat one Dorito. You start on a bag and boom, you're into the whole thing. I mean, it's done purposely that it's addictive to us. And so we always say, well, hey, it's not your fault. Just understand what they've done to you. And it's breaking.
And take back control.
It's breaking an addiction.
If you want.
It's breaking that addiction that's been done purposely, moved from tobacco industry to the food industry. So that's all out there. All that information's out there. Tobacco took over food in the 1980s.
That's absolutely filthy. Go, Gru. I'm about to answer the question, Gru. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. TC asked me, Crosby asked me what was my food. Mine would be pizza. I absolutely love pizza. I try not to eat it, every week, but when I do, my God, And that's my go-to. I'm Doc and Chef. I've heard you say that's a really bad one too, and I hang my head in sadness. but it is what it is. I just love my pizza. It's so good. It's so good. But you guys brought up a good conversation piece here that I want to lean into right now. The next question is: we talked about food. We're talking about scientists and all that good stuff. Well, actually, we'll go groove method. Well, I'm going to come back to this in a second. Crazy man, you never answered, and Sub 60 Ed, you never answered about the science/scientist question.
Go ahead, Crazy man.
Go ahead.
Oh,
hey, Crazy man, go ahead.
No, actually, what does Groove say? Because he's now host of the show.
Yeah, Crazy man, go ahead. I say.
No, I mean, I go with the flow. I mean, as an athlete, I go with what I feel is going to help my body and so forth. I mean, I will eat certain things, but I'll also burn it off. But I mean, like they did say, like Doritos, that whole thing is you just can't eat one Dorito. I mean, I just recently saw that they did have the UK had a certain amount of standards of what was on in food and so forth, that they used beets and so forth to mask or to give chemicals versus the chemicals that we currently have, like we have in potatoes and chips and so forth. So, I mean, we have to deal with what we have. And unfortunately, the FDA is not helping our society.
Okay, let me rephrase the question, because you kind of were going around like this on it.
Yeah.
If the CDC came out with something tomorrow, would you trust what they said?
No.
Sub 60 Ed?
Mine is, it's not necessarily a thing of trust. I'm actually a little disappointed because they've let me down in a way. Because in the sense that, you know, as a 55-year-old sub 60, I knew I was going to have I was going to have. Your turn is up. Do you need to be muted, sir? No, I knew I was going to have some things that I was going to have to deal with as I got older. And I know I have chronic stenosis of my back. You know, you guys, I think everybody here except Terry and Doc and Chef have seen I walk with a walking stick. It's not bad. It's just a pain in the ass. And the issue, I saw a neurosurgeon about 1.5 years ago who specializes in this up at Johns Hopkins. And she looked at me and she said, there's nothing really we can do for you. We could have back surgery. And I'm kind of like you, Terry. You ain't cutting me unless there's some guarantees involved, especially when it comes to the back. And she said we could go in there, but two things. One, there was no guarantee. It wasn't going to fix anything. It was just going to slow it down. And two, it could cause more issues. And I said, nice seeing you, Doc. I'll play my cards. I'll play my hand dealt, and I'll deal with it. So in a way, I'm kind of more disappointed that that the developments of the science with regards to dwarfism and stuff like that have not come further for the older people. Like the new younger kids that are now being born are dealing with more stuff than I had when I was younger. So that's kind of where I kind of hang my hat when it comes to doctors. And what I've started to do is I started kind of like what Jim was saying. I've started to look at more holistic stuff, kind of more like the turmeric and things of that nature, the ashwagandha, the shilajit, and things like that. Listen to like the binaural beats or whatever, you know, kind of trying some of that more non-traditional stuff. Because I go to my therapist, and my therapist and I always talk, you know, the body has a healing ability. You just have to know how to tap into it.
That's right.
And there's a part of me that says, okay, I'm 55. I've got, I don't know, however much time. Let's see if I can tap into it, because science isn't going to do it for me. Right. So did that make sense?
Want to say something?
Yeah. I mean, as an athlete, as I do now, I mean, I've dealt with a lot of injuries over the last 5 or 6 years, from partial knee replacement to meniscus tears and so forth. I mean, the whole thing is that the surgery is the last resort. And as Ed knows, that I will power through a lot of stuff. And for me to have surgery, it's the last resort to continue on what my path is. And that is where I am working with nonprofit and working with some of our honorees on the course, that I know what they're going through is because some aspects that I am going through the same aspects through the same program of partial knee replacement, dealing with a lot of pain, suffering, and so forth, that you work on mentally. It's the mind is the weakest link. If you can power through a lot of stuff, it's surgery for me is the last resort.
Okay, I wanted to go back real quick to what Sub 60 Ed. I just wanted to do something. And then we're going to jump topics. You said that having a walking stick is a real pain in your ass. Maybe you're using the walking stick the wrong way.
You know what? I'm going to give you an A+ for sitting there, and I'm going off on this whole nice thing, and you turn it somehow.
100%. Right. I was locked in. I didn't hear one.
Hey, Terry, I need you here more often to help me just keep him in his place, because
all right.
Hey, Rubio, I almost had to throw him in my car.
He's a real pain in the ass. Oh, whatever.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Him the wrong way too.
Hey, I had to throw him in my car to get him in the car.
No, you did. No, you didn't. Bless my heart or his heart? Whose heart?
Both, to be honest. All right. I want to move on to drinking. How difficult is it to be alcohol-free in today's society? We're going to start with
or to stay.
What's that?
To be alcohol-free or to stay alcohol-free?
Both. Be in recovery. The question is about being.
Either one. You start, Crosby.
To be in recovery.
Who's starting, me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was brought up in a middle-class home, so no, that was my Kabbalah joke.
You worked at McDonald's too?
Because for 32 years, I responded on idiots that were irresponsible with their drinking. Now, I'm not saying I never drink, but I tend to, if I've got somewhere to be the next day, or if I'm responsible for somebody, I'm very, very able to abstain. If I'm in Vegas with a bunch of friends and the reason that I'm there for the 3 days is over, I let it rain. You have to be responsible, Yes. So it's not, I've got, Belvedere in my house, but it doesn't mean that I'm drinking it constantly.
Okay. So, Gru, how hard is it to be alcohol-free in today's society?
Well, it's possible to be alcohol-free, but question is why. If you do it in moderation, I don't see any problem with, like having a beer at dinner, okay? Of course, if you have a bottle of vodka at dinner every day, that's a problem. But beer at dinner, I don't see a problem at all. I do it every day, almost every day.
Okay. Sub 60?
I just want to get, when I wrote the question, because this is one of the ones I gave you, I just want to give some context. It was basically one of the things I thought was thinking about is that, everywhere you turn, there's football tailgates, sports tailgates, there's alcohol all around us. And it's more about being somebody in recovery who really has to be, and we know some people within our group that are like that. And I just thought, thinking it from that perspective, it could be really challenging, and I just, it's to Terry's point. I think a lot of most of us here are all mature enough that we don't, do the stuff we did 30 years ago when we were in our 20s. But I think if you were whether you're an alcoholic or a functioning alcoholic or something of that nature, I think with the way, kind of like the tobacco companies market to the people that smoke, we have, beer companies, whiskey companies, and so on, built to make a profit, are going to market to whomever they can. And I just think real. It could be a real challenge for those who have to who are trying to stay in recovery. That was my point. So anyway.
Well, I think a lot of it is you are who you hang out with. If you know you have an issue like that, maybe you don't go to those tailgate. Yeah, Mike Donnelly's been chiming in. He says it all comes down to choices, and I agree. It's choices of what you're going to do, whether you're going to have a drink or not have a drink, or maybe you don't go to the tailgate. And does it suck? Do you lose? Yeah, it does. But you know what? I don't go to pizza every day because you know why? It's too damn tempting. Because I smell that beautiful sauce and cheese and be like, oh the hell, I got to have a piece. But I choose not to. Scarano, what's your thoughts on this?
There's so many different ways you can go with this question. So, Ed, I'm going to try and focus on what you pointed out in terms of somebody that is maybe come with the realization that they have an issue and they've maybe taken some steps forward to being in recovery and being sober and being a non-drinker. I don't think it's any different 30 years ago than it is now, other than I think society throws you maybe more problems that you're going to hide behind alcohol to deal with, whether it's financial or whatever it might be, stress, more stressors maybe now than there were back in the day. So it's somebody, Mike Donnelly, I think it was, said choices. It's a personal choice.
Yes.
And I can think of a number of different people in my life right now that some just have made the choice that they can't be sober. And fortunately, I have other friends that have made a decision that they can be sober and they can still get together with me and other friends that still drink. And they have the what's the word I'm looking for? The fortitude and the perseverance and the attitude that they're just not going to give in. They're not going to cave. So I don't know. It is hard. And I think step number one, and that's always step number one in AA, is like, you have to admit you have a problem. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't want to admit they have a problem.
Okay.
And the friend that I can think of right now who goes to therapy, and that friend has not told their therapist that they have a drinking problem. So I don't know how that friend will ever get sober unless that friend admits to themselves that they have a problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, MD and Chef.
Well, here in New Zealand, I think it's a little different. I think the biggie, you were talking about marketing, I think the biggie here is peer pressure. Mm-hmm. We live in a culture here that is very, very much alcohol friendly. If you go out to dinner and you don't have a glass of wine or a beer or something,
what's the matter with you?
Are you okay? Are you feeling okay? I mean, it's more of a peer pressure here thing. It's, and I'll say some phrases that are totally Kiwi phrases that we learned, but, we got people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who will brag to you about being drunk. And the way they say it here is, I was on the piss last night. That means I was drinking all night and I was drunk. But they got no problem, friends that are 65 saying, I was on the piss last night, I was so hungover, I was throwing up, and then they're telling you, and it's almost like this badge sometimes of alcohol here. And it's so the thing here with as Ed's talking about it, I imagine if somebody can't drink, doesn't want to drink, whatever it may be, it's just the peer pressure thing here, because you go out to a restaurant here on a Friday, Saturday night, or pretty much any night of the week, you can't find one table that doesn't have a bottle of wine on it. And if you did, it would be ours.
Okay, so what about the options? I was just thinking about this. Like when, say, I was in college, you had your beers, you had your heavy booze, and then I think that was right before like Zimas. And maybe some wine.
Zimas.
But now, you've got Mike's Hard Lemonade. There's literally seltzers that every single thing tastes like something else. You'll go in any convenience store and there's 80 different varieties of, I don't want to say booze, but booze. I mean, do you think that has anything to do with the availability or people just wanting to drink more, make it easier for them to drink, Gru?
Yeah, I think it is because all that stuff kind of sweet, like let's say some people don't like the taste of beer or taste of like whiskey or tequila or vodka, but those, those kind of flavored, sweet drinks, people can drink a lot more and don't even feel it until later. So it kind of has a, like a sweet taste that people just, cannot control in themselves. It's harder to control and feel, oh, that stuff is kind of bitter or doesn't taste good. It tastes good, actually.
What is your thoughts on that, ET? And then I got you, Scarano.
Who'd you ask?
Scarano.
I was just going to comment on that. I feel like most of the people I know that are full-on alcoholics, they go right for vodka. They're wanting to get drunk as quick and fast as possible. So, maybe things like convenience of airplane bottles and things like that, maybe. But it's not that all of a sudden there's Mike's Hard Lemonade or hard iced tea that is luring them to drink. Like, they're drinking to get drunk to forget their problems, and I
agree with you. What I'm saying is that let's say the stage one drinker, if you're going straight Smirnoff vodka, it's not going to taste like pizza, or but if you have hard lemonade where it just tastes like lemonade, you're like, I think I taste something else in this. I mean, that's a pretty easy transition. Crazy Man, sub 60, then Crosby. Go ahead, Crazy Man.
I think it all boils down to what you want. I mean, I am a DUI survivor. I was hit head on back in 91. So, I mean, that actually changed me from going out to bars and so forth. So, I mean, when it comes to drinking, it's, do you want to go out and drink? I know MD and the chef saying that New Zealand is like, what is wrong with you? I mean, I'll go out and have one beer. Then the rest of the time I'll either drinking water or lemonade. It's what have you gone through? And it boils down to where your mind, the mind is the weakest point of your body. So when you're working out or doing anything, it's what is the mind thinking and so forth. And it comes down to, do you want to drink or not drink? And it does. I mean, it can happen with stress. It can happen with relationships and so forth. I mean, as Jim knows, that being in the education field, we could be a full-blown alcoholic every day, but we choose not to, because it is what we want to do is to change and shape young minds.
Okay, sub 60.
Yeah, personally, I think, as you guys were saying, you have the White Claws, you have all these fruity drinks, the Mike's Lemonade, you have the ciders and so on. It's almost geared towards a younger crowd, where it's trying, it's kind of pulling in a younger crowd that, probably most of us here are probably beer, wine, or a spirit drink.
Mad Dog 2020.
Mad Dog 2020, as they say, we drank
Bartles
Mad Dog
James.
2020. Yeah. But I'm just saying, I think, I think it's, I don't know. It's, I kind of look at it where, the 20 somethings, I'm going to call them kids, might enjoy it's an easier sell for the companies to sell these fruity drinks, the seltzers, because they can sell more because it takes longer and it tastes better. I look at it from, from a business perspective, and not to say it's right, but if you look at it, somebody was saying, a lot of people drink beer.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. Doc and Chef, did you want to add something else?
Don't forget TC.
He says he's good.
You got anything?
Yeah, I just want to add the reason why Michael and I have really decreased our alcohol consumption is because we now know from what we've learned is that alcohol shrinks your brain, and we only have one brain. So why do we take such bad care of our brain? And so the recommendation is, if you don't drink, don't drink. But if you do drink, just remember that one bottle of wine is 7 glasses of wine, and you really shouldn't be consuming any more than 4 glasses a week. I didn't say a night, I said a week. Now, I've had patients where I go, okay, how many glasses of wine are there? And they're in a bottle, and they'll go 2. And I go, no.
It's like a
Depends on
goblet.
the glass.
Yeah, how big's your
Yeah.
glass?
So the wiser we become, the more we're like, we want to protect this because we want to be thinking clearly until our last breath. So for us, when we go out with friends, we might have a glass of wine, but if we don't have more, they are concerned. Like, why aren't you drinking more? Well, because we want to protect our brain.
Is that your response to them?
Pretty much. Oh yeah.
How do they respond to you on that?
Oh,
Okay.
That's
Okay.
pretty much it. Yeah.
like, hey, it's your choice. Just like somebody said, it's your choice.
Yep.
Is New Zealand more like the European countries like Germany, Italy, all those places where kids can start drinking like at age 12 and it's just a common thing?
It's legal at 18, but you see it way under that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that like out of bars or just with their family? Like I'm saying, you're a German kid you're with the family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
families buying alcohol for 16-year-olds and having parties in their house. It's pretty
But it's not.
sad because the parents do it.
But it's not where they'll have one or two. They're having, like Ed was talking about, those kind of mixer drinks and things. They'll knock down a dozen of those at the age of 14 or 16, and getting totally wasted. So it's not like they're doing it because it's a nice little family thing, where maybe like what you're talking about in Europe and Italy or France or something. No, they're doing it to get wasted.
Like their parents.
Do they have like issues with DUIs or like alcohol poisoning in New Zealand? Like more than what you would say?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's
Okay, speaking of families, North Carolina is heavily affected right now over Hurricane Helene. It's still going on. I think it's 12 days after the fact. I actually just talked to one of my students that just got their power turned back on just today. So 12 days later. And the big issue right now is coming out that FEMA during the summer said they had more than enough money to cover everything, and now they don't have any sort of money to do anything. And so the rub is that even though they say they haven't done it, there's countless articles and videos of saying, yes, they have done it. What have they done? They've given money from the FEMA accounts to illegal aliens, illegal immigrants. So the issue becomes, what are our thoughts on that? Number one, okay? What are your thoughts on giving billions, that's with a B, to Ukraine, millions to Israel, Egypt, and just this, I think it was Friday, we gave 156 million to Lebanon. And a lot of these countries are not exactly, hey, we love USA, rah, rah, rah. What are your thoughts on this? Well, TC, you're the soldier of the group. I don't know if anyone else was. What's your thoughts? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely, I think somebody on the Slack chat earlier this week was like, another dime better not go out of this country before, we get our crap straight. I'm all for being philanthropic and supporting people. But when the shit hits the fan, how many other countries send their people here? In my 32 years in the fire service, for more than half of it, I was on our FEMA team. And anytime something happened all over the world, we were on alert. And more than half the time, we were sent all the way across the nation, all across the world to respond to everybody else. But nobody comes to us. I think that's atrocious.
Yeah, Emily Stannard said they just want the vote next month. And then what was it? Mike Donnelly said $750 offered by Kamala should be insulting to every taxpayer. And word around town is that's to each family. It's not to each individual. And it's the wording on it is now it's a loan, which I'm a little confused. Scarano, what's your thoughts on this?
I would say the word that came to mind to me was what Crosby already said, atrocious. And it's embarrassing. I feel really bad for anybody that needs the help and is not getting the help. It's kind of why I don't pay attention to the news or watch the news and stick my head in the sand, so to speak, which is not good either. I get that because I could be living in North Carolina and it happened to me, I would want help. So I guess I'm very ignorant. Why are we giving the money away to other countries?
Well, and I think this is why someone who say is a little bit more political would say, okay, Scarano, I understand that you don't want to be political because it's an ugly, ugly world, but this is one of those things that who you're voting in directly implicates what happens next. I think that's the part where there's the rub of, okay, if you don't like what's going on, it's just like a class president. You don't like the class president organizing seats like this. Well, at some point we might want to vote in a new class president so we can sit where we want, or things like that.
Is FEMA an acronym? What does it stand for?
Crosby?
Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Okay.
So,
in my world of, like, say, a school budget, you have line items, different categories that money gets budgeted to. So if FEMA has a certain amount of money budgeted for, what did you say again? What kind of
basically emergencies. Basically hurricanes.
Or are they just dubbing these other countries' incidences as emergencies? Like, why aren't our emergencies put as the priority over other?
FEMA is for our emergencies. That's ours.
Okay, so it's misappropriation of monies.
Well, no, it's misappropriation of funds, number one. But then they also, obviously, we're giving it, literally billions with the B to Ukraine, Israel, Egypt, Lebanon just this past week, and then they also
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, the infiltration of the illegal migrants. So that's a whole nother issue of, okay, so they're paying for this because this is their emergency. And okay, so say we have $100 FEMA funds, we'll just use a round number. What has stopped the US government over the past 4 years of, there's no money, what should we do? Get out the printing machine, and they just literally print money. And I understand that takes us more into debt and things like that, and that's a whole separate topic. But if they can print money before, why can't they do it again? Like, I feel like I'm missing something here. I just don't get it. Gru?
Well, I think it's totally crazy that we are giving money to countries, especially the countries that hate us, like Lebanon and Egypt. Okay, I mean, if we give them money, they hate us. If we don't give them money, they hate us. Okay, I mean, what's the point of giving them money? Okay, and me being from Ukraine, I don't like money being given to Ukraine or any other so-called friendly country, ahead of Americans, taking care of people who are in trouble after those hurricanes and stuff. And I saw a video, actually, I did share it, I think, on Decades channel here, about one brand new Holiday Inn hotel in Chicago, which is basically totally occupied by illegal immigrants from Venezuela. And the money is given to them, to house them and to feed them, and no one else can actually go to the hotel, which is also crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's insane. Crazy man.
I mean, I think it boils down to that there's different funds, and I understand that you have funds that go out, but first of all, it comes down to we support our own, and that's where our government has lacked, unfortunately, that they have gone to promoting us outside to Israel, to Egypt, to Afghanistan, and so forth. We need to keep the money into and support our own, to build our own country up.
TC, as you being part of this before, when they used to send you to other places, was there rumblings within your group of, why don't we just stay in Nevada? Why don't we just stay in Texas? Why don't we stay in Florida where there's going to be another hurricane?
Well, yeah, we've when Hurricane Harvey hit, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I was already home in Houston when that happened, and our FEMA team, our task force came from LA County to Houston. So I was attached to them as a local liaison, we do respond in, like, our guys right now, our team 2 is actually in North Carolina right now. Our team 1 is mobilized waiting to go to Florida when that thing hits tonight.
Good Lord. It's up 60.
And that's really what's really good, the shit's going to really hit the fan when this next one hits, because they have zero money. And I was talking to somebody earlier today. This thing is supposed to be one of the strongest ones to hit Tampa in like forever. And if you think about it, it crushed Asheville, North Carolina, however many miles that's up from the Gulf. Just imagine what it's going to do to Tampa and what it's going to. There's going to be. I mean, I don't know. It goes back to what you were saying, Rubio. They're going to need to print money because we need to make sure we take care of our people first. We have to find that. We have to make sure that they are. I mean, you can't have people struggling.
Yeah, and DeSantis has done a pretty good job. I saw that he already has the Tampa Bay Rays arena literally already set up for hospital beds, and he's got it all set up like a hospital, basically. And he's also got, I saw some photo where there was those electrician linemen that go up there and fix all the stuff. There's like thousands of them.
The beds?
Say it again?
The cots?
Yeah, the cots.
You're talking about the linemen who were going to fix
the linemen, yeah. As soon as they're ready to go, they're ready to go. I mean, you can't do much better than he's doing, especially in a place like Florida where it's not uncommon that this is going to happen. You know, it's going to happen. You know, it's one of the perks of living there.
But my question is this: how come you hear about all of these things like Samaritan's Purse, and they had like a half a mile of people lined up ready to volunteer? You hear about, you know, like the Cajun Army, which is the group of all these churches that they band together and they go just help people. How come it's always all the private citizens and these charity, I don't want to say religious, but these charities and church organizations that always freaking step up to the plate, and our government is left holding in their hand like, oh, well, we weren't ready. We don't have money. We don't have this. We don't have that. When the private citizens and the churches and all these charities can come together and do what needs to be done. I don't, what the heck does our government do?
I'll answer that question. Go back to Emily Stannard real quick. She said her older brother, and she's up in, you know, northern Idaho, basically. His older brother's a lineman headed to Florida right now. She's terrified. Yeah, that would be terrifying. And we wish him the best of luck. Yes. I think one of the answers, TC, is the obvious answer is there's no red tape with private people doing it. And that's why the government doesn't want them to do it, because everyone's realizing we kind of don't really need the government. Because you said the Cajun Army, there's also the Redneck Army. I think that's literally their name, where they're going in and going all kinds of doing everything, getting people out of there. And then I saw the government sent a whole bunch of chainsaws down there today to cut the trees. And all the chainsaws, there was like pallets and pallets of them, were electric chainsaws.
Oh.
Like, what are you doing, guys? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to plug them into where? And then they were even saying, oh, well, they have to order, you know, the $750. They just need the app on their phone. Well, a lot of them don't have cell phones at this point. A lot of them, their houses are full of water and they don't have electricity. So where are they charging it? Oh, they'll go into their car to charge it. Okay, well, another car doesn't have gas. Okay, and their car could have been floated down the damn river at this point. Gru, you're going to say something, then I'm coming to MD and Chef.
Well, as far as government being involved, I agree with JC. You know, private citizens always do a better job. Me being from former Soviet Union, I do remember when Chernobyl disaster happened back in '86. The government officially told everybody about it a week later. Okay, so everybody kind of was doing their stuff, people who live close to the epicenter or living in the areas, they officially didn't know until the week later. Okay, that whole thing was actually, spewing radiation. That's a good example of, how government can do stuff. Okay, so.
I feel like a radiation leak should probably been mentioned a little faster than a week.
Yes.
They're very lucky they didn't have social media back then. MD and Chef, what are your thoughts? Are you guys hearing anything about this?
Oh, yeah, we got our finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
I'll just go first real quick.
Fire away.
Mine's real simple. My mom always taught me to take care of your family first.
Yeah.
So we should
that's a no-brainer.
We moved here to New Zealand in 2000, almost 24 years ago, and just seeing what's going on, it's sad to see what's happened in the USA, to see what, you guys living there are dealing with. We're watching it, we're seeing it, we're involved in it. Of course, we voted because that's the number one thing we can do is vote. But as far as people on the ground and that, it's sad to see what's going on. And I play golf. First question I get from guys is, what's going on in the US? Why is it such a mess there? What, who's doing this? Who's doing that? And they expect me to kind of try to explain it while trying to play golf. And honestly, to try and explain it is very, very hard because it is such a mess. You got people coming from so many different directions that I basically say, well, the best thing we do is we vote and make some changes. But I know that doesn't necessarily change it today. But yeah, it's sad to see what's going on from over here.
And make America great again.
Yeah.
But I'm not being political.
And make America healthy again.
Literally.
Can you pull up that Mike Donnelly quote real quick? Sub 60. Where did it go? Some would say it's all part of the master plan. Government wants people to need them. It all comes down to control. Well, and they've had a very good study of that for the last 4 years. Yeah. I mean, that you really got to see who is doing what and what they're doing and how they're doing it. Sub 60 Ed is yelling at me. We're coming up on the hour. Guys, this was so good. We didn't even take a commercial. And Sub 60 Ed didn't even yell at me for not taking a commercial. We want to thank Crazy Man, Jim Nature Boy Scarano, TC, Crosby, Gru, Alex on Tech, and of course, our new people, MD and Chef all the way in New Zealand. They are doing fantastic. Sub 60 Ed, who's the winner?
I don't know. Everybody's playing. I don't think I have a say tonight. MD and Chef are going to be the winners tonight.
Yeah.
When do we win? When do we win?
No, you just get the win that you were the
pat yourself on the back.
You were the square of the show. You were the rectangular of the show.
Once again, if anyone would like to participate, you can call or email Sub 60 Ed. It's Decades Show 24 at gmail.com, decadeshow24 at gmail.com. And once again, if you do not agree with us and you're just cussing us out the entire time, and you're like, they are so dumb, Rubio's the worst possible person on the planet, feel free to come on the show. We'd love to have you. We want as many different viewpoints as possible. We do not want to be in a vortex of our own volume. Okay.
And just to let you guys know, anybody listening, I always say that about Rubio anyway. So go ahead and chime in, please, constantly.
And if you're watching,
join us.
And if you want to call, I can give Ed's phone number.
Don't you? Yes, Jim.
Can I
ask
Michael and Isabel if they'll stay on when we're done? Just for a second, I have to ask you something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Once again, don't forget tonight, 9 p.m. You've got AC of AC Sports Live. He's on YouTube, all that good stuff. Followed right back behind them is The Ride with Chevy and Nasty, our two big Canadian friends with terrible food taste because Canada's food is trash. On that note, not a moment wants to come on. Fantastic.
What's worse, Canada or Germany?
The Greek Filipino. He was watching tonight.
He was, yeah, I knew he was. I was surprised he didn't comment. Thought he might have some comments, but hey, yeah, he's going to get on too. We're going to get the Greek Filipino on too.
All right. Thank you for everyone from Decades. We're out.
Thank you.
Cheers.